Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Neocore Games was kind enough to provide me with an early review key for King Arthur Legion 9. This standalone expansion serves as a sequel to King Arthur Knight's Tale. The stories are completely separate, so you can play Legion 9 without having ever purchased or played Knight's Tale. After a little over 25 hours, I have completed the main story and can provide a review for you. Let's dive into my thoughts on the expansion, starting with what I like. Legion 9 puts you in the role of Gaius Julius Minto. He was born into a wealthy Roman family and was destined to become a member of the Senate. Unfortunately, while he was in the military, Gaius was ambushed, killed, and sent to Tartarus. There he encountered Septimus Sulla, a former ruler of Britannia, the Roman capital of Britain, during King Arthur's reign. Emperor Sulla made Gaius a tribunus, or officer, in the Ninth Legion of Rome, and tasked him with finding a way out of Tartarus. With the help of his flamen, or priest, Platonius Nerva, Gaius finds a way into Avalon. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the Ninth Legion couldn't follow him, and now Gaius has to figure out how to send Emperor Sulla word that there is a way out. Not long after arriving on the island, you'll encounter a Flamina named Albina Virgila. She helps you claim Nova Roma, which is the fort that serves as your base of operations. She also presents you with a moral conflict you'll spend the rest of the game dealing with. Platonius Nerva is deeply loyal to Emperor Sulla, and more importantly, the deity he serves, Orca, the demonic god of the underworld. Albina serves Vesta, the goddess of home and humanity. She sees Emperor Sulla coming to Avalon as a sign of Orca's rise and is vehemently against it. You will have to choose which side appeals to you the most. This setup is significantly different from King Arthur, and I think it's a great way to start the game. I do have some issues with the execution, but we'll get into that in the neutral and dislike sections. For those who are curious, this game does have some callbacks to Knight's Tale, and you meet a few members of the Knights of the Round Table. I enjoy those interactions because the Ninth Legion has zero respect for Avalonians and basically considers them to be savages. This helped to further differentiate the experience. What Legion 9 does have in common with Knight's Tale is fantastic class mechanics. The classes are officer titles in the Legion, so Gaius is a tribunus, Nerva is a flamen, so on and so forth. While the classes have new abilities, they are all some version of a class that existed in Knight's Tale. Tribunus is just like Vanguard, Centurion is just like Champion, etc., etc. The big difference here is that Knight's Tale only lets you set out with a team of 4 characters at one time, whereas Legion 9 lets you bring all 6 party members with you. This means that you very consistently have full access to all of the class mechanics, and that makes combat an absolute blast to play. Legion 9 provides missions where you recruit your party members pretty much back to back in the beginning of the game, so you'll spend the vast majority of it with all 6 characters. I cannot remember any game with a sequel that increased the party size, so this is a welcomed improvement. And another nice change, you can respec at any time. Knight's Tale requires you to have either randomly looted a tome or go through a process that prevented you from using a character for one mission. This made experimentation significantly more difficult, but now you are free to play around with different build ideas to your heart's content. Another really cool change is the addition of ultimate abilities. These are powers every character unlocks at level 10, and they have crazy effects like summoning doppelganger versions of yourself or reducing all enemies' vitality by 20%. Using these powers costs souls, and you can only gain them from defeating enemies. When you kill a foe, it will leave a number of souls behind, equivalent with the difficulty of that enemy. You must then manually walk over the bubble to pick it up. This must be done before the fight is over, or the bubbles disappear. Soul points completely reset after each mission, so there's no reason not to use ultimates when you have them. It's an interesting system that provides another feather in your cap to overcome difficult encounters. This is important because despite all the changes, Legion 9 remains a very challenging game. you can play on normal, or there's also a roguelite mode, which prevents you from manually saving. There's also a wide array of difficulties ranging from story mode all the way to brutal. I played the entire experience on hard, and outside of a couple of fights that I felt were way too brutal, it was a fantastic experience that remained challenging for a sizable portion of the game. In the review notes, Neocore did mention that they were still balancing the game, especially for the very hard and brutal difficulties, so the version you receive might be even more well balanced. On that same note, the version of the game I played had no injuries or injury tokens. In Knight's Tale, if your vitality was significantly damaged, your character could receive an injury, limiting their effectiveness. Taking that mechanic out makes the game easier because a party member can be knocked out in a fight with no consequences for the next mission. There's no hospital in Legion 9 to heal injuries with, so it's possible this is meant to be taken out of the game, but it's still listed in the glossary, so I am honestly not sure. Speaking of there not being a hospital, Nova Roma has significantly less upgrade options than its counterpart Camelot. Honestly, this doesn't bother me because I didn't really feel like there were upgrades that were missing from the experience. There's even a new mechanic where you can find rare jars out in the world and then activate them to give yourself specific bonuses and penalties for the next mission. I never bothered to use them, but some of the options did look interesting. The last thing I like about this game is the price. It will be $19.99 on Steam, and I think that's very fair for a roughly 30-hour expansion experience when you count the in-game content. There are some aspects of this game that I am neutral on, and the first one I want to talk about is how Legion 9 handles party members. Knight's Tale put you into a world that was based on Arthurian legend. Consequently, almost everybody already knows each other, and they comment on that shared history. You could recruit 20 plus characters, and many of them had very memorable recruitment quests, especially if you are already familiar with their lore. Legion 9 only provides a team of 6 characters, and there isn't a mythology linking them with other characters that they meet. Consequently, the game's lore doesn't feel as alive and interconnected as it did in Knight's Tale. This is important to note because the lore is what made party members interesting in that game. There are no party member quests, and you cannot talk with them back at home base. The backstories help flesh them out, but Legion 9 doesn't have that to lean on. In my opinion, the people you play with in this game are rather boring and not fully fleshed out. The flip side of this is that Knight's Tale also had a very cumbersome party management system. Even though you had 20 plus interesting characters, you probably only used around 6 of them. Legion 9 sticks with a much more manageable selection of characters, and consequently, it's not nearly as frustrating to keep your team together. Also, I think the visual design of your party members is fantastic. The undead demonic look is done very well, especially on your main character Gaius and his Praetorian Octavius Remus. Knight's Tale characters look really cool as well, but I think this design stands out. Another portion of the game I am neutral on is the endgame. Once you finish with Legion 9's main story, there's an endgame portion where you complete more quests and face the true ending boss. On the one hand, this is cool because it's all high-level content where you can use the very best abilities at your disposal. This portion of the game also ramps up the difficulty by spreading the enemies out, preventing you from crowd controlling or wiping out large groups of them at one time. On the other hand, from a story standpoint, this portion of the game feels significantly more sparse. There's less banter and very little setup for many of the missions you set out to do. It literally is just about the combat, which is still great, but also this section just feels a little empty. Mind you, I have not finished the endgame, so I cannot comment on how satisfying it is to complete. I also cannot confirm the quality of the main story endings. Those videos were broken in my version of the game, but Neocore Games did confirm they will work in the full release. The last aspect of the game I am neutral on is gear progression. In Knight's Tale, gear was random with different tiers and levels. Consequently, as you level up, you would get access to more and more powerful items. This is part of what made playing the endgame interesting, because you could get the highest leveled equipment at the highest tier. Legion 9 retains the randomness of looting items and the different tiers, but it ditches levels. Consequently, getting new armor and weapons isn't nearly as big a deal as it was in Knight's Tale. There's still a massive amount of different options to choose from, and they fit with many different builds, so I won't put this in the dislike section, but personally, I prefer the original system. Now, finally, we can get into the dislike section. Quick note, if you have been enjoying the video, I strongly recommend you join our Discord. We talk about CRPGs just like Legion 9 all day long, and we plan to start running tabletop games there this month. Back to the review, there are two things I don't like about this game, and the first is how it handles the morality scale. This was a big draw in King Arthur, as you had to choose between tyrant and righteous, along with Christian or Old Faith. There were many powerful characters who were gate locked behind which morality you chose, and some of these decisions impacted the story. The cool thing about this was you had complete control throughout the game. If you decided you are a righteous Christian, then the game never forced you into decisions that a tyrant would make, and vice versa. Legion 9 waters down the morality scale by simply making it a choice between Orca and Vesta, which pretty clearly comes down to good or evil. There are no characters locked behind your morality, although your choices might cause a character to leave. Honestly, other than a couple of building upgrades, there's virtually no content locked behind morality, so the choices don't feel as impactful. Even worse, the game forces you to perform actions in support of both sides. This isn't a real issue with quests that support the Vesta Flamina Virgilia, because the actions she asks you to perform are mostly neutral and not related to saving people or being kind-hearted. It becomes a much bigger issue in quests that support the Orca Flamen Nerva, since he asks for assistance with enslaving souls and performing demonic rituals. You have no option to tell him that doesn't align with your morality during quest. Oddly enough, after these quests are done, the game will oftentimes present you with a moral question regarding what has already been done in order to gain points with Vesta or Orca. So the mission will force you to help enslave a soul, and then afterwards you can gain humanity points if you choose to treat the enslaved soul nicely. That's weird, and I don't think the game is well served by how it handles morality. The other issue I have with the game is the drab environments. While the architecture has changed, the overall environments look very similar to what we received in Knight's Tale. There's a shade of gray that seems to filter everything and causes many of the areas you travel in to look the same. It was fine in the first game because it was still something I hadn't seen before, but following up with another 30 hours in the same environments definitely got old by the end. That ends my review of King Arthur Legion 9. Let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this review and if there's any other content for the game you want to see. Bottom line, if you enjoyed Knight's Tale, I believe you'll have a great time with this expansion. It maintains the fantastic mechanics, punishing combat, and compelling strategy that made the first game a hit. It also has expanded the party size to make combat more complex and give you more mechanics to play with. It does maintain a couple of issues from the first game, including uninteresting environments and a story that is mostly present to keep you moving. Despite this, if you are a huge fan of turn-based strategy CRPGs with deep combat systems, Legion 9 is a blast to play. This expansion will be released for PC on May 9th and will then be available for consoles at a later date. The streaming embargo also ends on May 9th, so our live stream of the adventure will start that evening. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.